Hello, Sophie. How you doing?
Hello, Sam. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, good, good.
Good.
So this is a topic we've kind of veered into on previous conversations
Yeah.
of how can you be the most efficient with your marketing budget? And I think
Yes.
also sort of knowing when to get the help. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think
Yeah.
this is something every creative has experienced certainly the last couple of years is, oh yeah, we're doing this in-house now. And then oh yeah, how do you do this bit and how do you do that bit? And there's some awesome tools out there. And years ago we stopped giving people designs. We started giving them Canva templates, right? We
Yes.
give them the logo assets and things like that. But actually, then, well, here's a Canva template for your socials. There's a few different ones here. Let us know if you want anything specific. But here's, I don't know, a testimonial template, a case study one, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Brilliant. And on the whole, it works. They deviate over time, but then,
Yeah.
hey, look, we, the tools are there to do stuff yourselves. Great. I think that's brilliant. I think the more
Yeah.
empowered people are, the better. Um,
Yeah.
and
Definitely. I mean, yeah.
I think
Sorry.
really in the last couple of years as well, people are sort of, oh, let's reel back the spend. And I think marketing often gets the first hit. It feels like the vanity spend, maybe. But I think I might have mentioned this in the previous one as well. There was a really good article. I can't remember who wrote it. I'll find it. We'll put it in the links. But it's saying, in times of crisis or economic, worry, you got to market harder than ever.
Yep.
Because guess what?
So,
Everyone else is
yeah.
pulling back.
Mark Ritson's really on that. So
Right.
in lockdown, I did a lot of research around this,
Yeah.
and those who continue to market come out stronger and take more strong market share than if
Yeah.
they don't. But no, I mean, I agree. A lot of, I mean, we see this, we're coming in as the marketing department,
Mm.
but very often we've got people, an admin person and another person kind of trying to do things in house. But the reality is it's very difficult if you don't have that knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the most efficient ways of like making sure your budget goes further is actually having someone who knows marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of my clients come to me and go, "Oh, I've been approached for an ad. Should I do it?" And I'll go,
Mm.
"Well, let's have a look at the target audience, shall we?" And then
Yeah.
you'll find out it's some random thing that just doesn't work.
Mm.
And so you can then go, "Well, actually, no, don't do it because it's not your target audience. The
Mm.
reach, whilst they're promising that they can get to 2,000 people, that's not a lot of people because you need
Mm.
to get to how many people."
Yeah.
And I think it is an interesting one because we're seeing more people. I mean, we try and do a lot of stuff in house.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm very strong on is making sure we go to specialists for specialist things.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
SEO is a classic, Google Ads is
Yeah.
another one. You need a lot of detailed information, detailed knowledge to be able to make that work.
Yeah.
And also, you can then hold them accountable because ultimately, none of us knows the ins and outs of Google Ads unless you live and breathe it.
For
And you do
sure.
have to be a detail freak, which I'm not. But also in creative, I still think there's an element of there are things that you need to do. So I redid an ad recently. I'll be honest, it wasn't hugely good.
Mm.
So we're at the point now where we need to go to a creative agency to go and do really simple ads. We just need a couple of ad templates. But when
Mm.
you look at the old ad templates, you go, yeah, it was
Mm.
rebranded, but it's looking awful. I'm going to
Yeah.
have a go. And then you realize, well, particularly because I come from a creative agency background, you look at
Mm.
it and go, I hope people like Sam never see this
Mhm.
because they'd be going, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I do think it is, it's about picking and choosing and making sure that you're using the right people for exactly the right things. And that
Exactly. Yeah.
is key to like efficiency. As you say, you guys aren't that interested in, resizing an ad every 2 seconds
Yeah.
because it's a lot of work. So you have to charge quite a lot because you have to open the file, you have to then find, generally you haven't run an ad for a year, so it's somewhere in the ether somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
We were talking about
but
this just earlier in that when I was a freelancer way back in the day, what sort of early to mid 2000s, I would just be resizing, I'd come into an agency, I'd be artworking that day, doing creative the next, whatever it was. Some days you just resizing an advert, right? The creative's here, we need a poster, we need a billboard, we need this and all that kind of thing. and it just took all day,
Ages,
yeah,
yeah. I mean,
and then
I worked in a time when rates were coming down on mortgages, and we resized ads every week,
yeah,
and hugely time consuming. I mean, nowadays we've got AI, so it probably
mm,
wouldn't like you probably just shove it in and it just goes.
mm, yeah, yeah, yeah,
But yeah, no, I mean, I think the other thing is making sure you don't waste money. And I think that's the kind of the partnership between the two
yeah,
of, the agency and then the marketing people is just making sure that you're, doing the right things, the right
yeah,
people are doing the right things.
absolutely.
Because as you say, people are kind of trying to do it in-house, but
Mm,
it won't always have the impact.
mm,
And also you'll question stuff, like we question stuff and go,
yeah,
is that right?
yeah,
I think sometimes you can forget that. So I've been working with a client recently who are very, very new to marketing, and it is trying to get that mindset of, oh, I can do this, and you kind
mm,
of go, but your audience isn't expecting something that's a bit rubbish.
yeah,
Your audience is expecting something that's actually elevated because you're going to be charging £6,000 a month for whatever you do,
yeah,
and actually you have spent 20p on this thing,
mm,
and it looks awful. So it's kind of matching it as well,
yeah, yeah.
I
I
think.
think a lot of the fundamentals will remain the research, the strategy, the
Yeah.
design, delivery, so they're pretty constant, but then
Yeah,
actually there's adaptations. Well, what are people doing in the world? Do we go that way? Do we do the opposite? And it's
yeah,
especially with like say sort of Google ads, Meta ads, something like that. It's a constantly moving goalpost. So you've got to have things in place for that. But the basics, yeah, let's keep that simple and give people the tools and empower them to do that, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
then do the cool stuff because
Mm.
actually, that is never wasted money if you're
Yeah.
with a trusted agency.
Yeah.
A £15,000 on a website is not wasted money if you
Mm.
do it right. As I say, I was
Yes.
just telling you my example
Yeah.
of this is not how you do stuff. So I had this website
Mm.
that I'm looking into the back end, and there's no way of changing it, and we can't
Mm.
even, I passed it on to your team,
Yeah.
and they said we can't even put a new page in, which means that that whole website is completely redundant, having been
Mm.
built 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is so that I guess is another one of my advice is
Yeah.
getting best. It's actually using trusted suppliers, and you might trust them, but get a marketing person to have a look at it.
Mm.
You only have to ask your marketing mate and go, what
Yeah.
do I need? And I think ultimately this guy just asked for a website and so wasn't specific about what he wanted.
Yeah.
And the agency then wasn't specific in asking
Yeah. Yeah.
back. And it just seems such a waste of money. And that
Yeah, for sure.
thing is like using, yeah, being able to get the right advice,
Mm.
and ask the right questions.
Definitely. I mean, for a website in particular, we just look at it like a car.
Yeah,
You want a car that's not going to get to just the end of the road. It wants to take you on a
yeah,
long journey, right? And last,
yeah,
a car should be, 3 to 5 years,
yeah,
if it's a new one, right?
yeah,
Do you need speed? Do you need comfort? It's what you invest in that will get you there quicker or safer or more comfortably or whatever it is, right?
yeah,
And yeah, you can cut corners and different things with it, but actually the fundamentals, your messaging, the conversion rates and all that, that's the things you need to invest the
yeah.
time. Yeah.
Well, this agency hasn't even set any of that up.
Mm,
So the client had to write all the copy,
mm,
all the messaging. There's no Google Analytics, nothing on the back end.
mm.
Honestly,
Yeah.
um,
Scary.
absolutely terrible. So yeah, a big advice is like make sure you've got all the tick boxes.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think you guys are very good at asking all those questions.
Mm,
Really, because obviously, whenever we've got a new brief, it's like going through all those questions and think,
yeah.
oh my
And do
goodness,
you know what?
so
We review
important.
them, at least every couple of months. Are there
Mm,
too many? Actually, this is a better question to ask. Sort of refine,
yeah,
just reframing that question is better. How do we make it smooth in our process? And yeah, it does take about an hour to go through our discovery call
yeah. So
because it's a big piece of work, and there's a lot going on.
there
So
is, but
yeah,
actually, that means that the right thing comes out for the right person.
exactly. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and you can't do things like that in the house.
yeah.
Um, And actually, even just getting advice on adding extra pages.
Mm,
So, my client that I've referred to recently, I just
mm,
said, just ask these guys because they know best. I
mm,
mean, I'm a marketer,
mm,
but I don't know quite what the best way is to make sure that that continues with the longevity. Because as
mm.
you say, marketing is an investment and it should be an investment.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast today about the fact that, building a brand is a lifetime. So
Yeah.
everything's measured on a quarterly basis and
Mm.
how kind of wrong that is because actually you can't measure a website in the first quarter because Google hasn't done all its bits, it hasn't done
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
So you can kind of go, oh, it's not working, but
yeah. And the same with well, any aspect of it really.
yeah,
We deliver what we know from our decades of experience,
yeah,
but it's always like, well, let's put it out there, look at it, measure it, adapt it. And
exactly.
because the world changes, messaging changes, anything like that. So it's always a moving target.
Yeah,
And it's what will work well in one industry working well in another. Sometimes
yeah,
they ace it in a different industry, but you've got to try these things and
yeah, you
and
got to,
iterate. You've
yeah.
got to iterate. Yeah. Yeah.
No, definitely got to iterate.
Mm, mm,
And think, yeah, but that's why it's kind of important to actually hire people who understand it.
mm, mm.
Because you can do it in-house, but I think you'll certainly, you're being pulled from pillar to post and you're worried about all
Mm.
sorts of things. I think,
Yeah.
so like just ask questions, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
And, and I think, if you're trying to do things on a budget and keep it lean, I think the most important things, and we'll probably agree on this, is what's your big value proposition, which we've covered in the
Yeah.
previous one, how are you helping people? What are you
Oh, yeah.
solving, right? And know,
Yeah.
knowing your audience and your value proposition, I think are the most important things. I've seen some very scrappy, DIY marketing go out, right? But they've
Yeah.
nailed that bit at least, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So,
yeah, I mean, I do a talk on getting the
mm,
best bang for your buck, and
mm.
I have to be careful not to go on and on and on and on and on about strategy. But fundamentally, if you don't have the strategy, so you don't have the audience and you don't have the messaging,
Mm,
quite frankly, you can, you're throwing money at the wall.
absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, that is the biggest efficiency, and actually, you can then do quite a lot in house, but you
Yeah, yeah.
then got to understand it, and that's a struggle I've had with some clients who take it on internally because they don't really understand what I've
Mm,
provided to them, and so
yeah,
therefore can't implement it. And it takes about 6 months to start to get it just in the colloquialism of
absolutely. Yeah,
what
yeah.
you're saying all the time. So yeah,
Mm.
yes,
Yeah, I think it's knowing your strengths as well.
yeah,
I think that's the key thing. I know lots about a lot of things. I can give good advice on general marketing like that, but
yeah,
I know when I'm like, okay, you need to speak to X, Y, Z, the pros,
yeah,
because yeah, because
yeah,
they're specialists for a reason, right? So yeah.
yeah, exactly
Mm,
that.
mm.
Yeah,
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I think that wraps it up neatly there.
yeah,
Invest the time in understanding your value proposition and who your audience are.
yeah.
uh, you know, yes, there's way more beyond that you need to get right as well, but I'd say
Yeah,
that's
I
the
think
core.
there's that. And then,
Yeah.
ask a friend, marketing
Yeah.
friend, before you
Yeah.
invest huge amounts of money or get someone who you know is reputable.
Sure.
Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, cool.
Nice. All right.
Lovely to see you.
Yes, and you. We'll catch you next time.
Catch you
All
next
right.
time.
Bye for
Bye.
now. Bye.